In a Target parking lot, it began with a migraine. But it wasn't your typical migraine, the kind that buzzes behind your eyes. No, this one exploded behind my right temple. Instead of popping a few tablets and squinting my way through a checkout line, I barely had time to register the pain before the universe flipped sideways. Shockwaves shot down my spine like a silent explosion. The keys hung pointlessly from my fingertips as I slumped into the driver's seat. I don't remember dialing 911. As my vision blurred and the world shrank into a tunnel of blazing white, I don't recall reaching for or unlocking my phone, but I must have. Because the next thing I knew, I was on a gurney. Someone pressing down. Someone strapping me in. The restraints cut into my arms as I squinted against a neon bombardment overhead. A mask was placed over my face. Someone yelled something about neurosymptoms. The ambulance ride was a blur of sirens and oxygen fumes. I think I croaked. Or maybe I didn't. When a paramedic with kind eyes leaned over and asked, "Do you know where you are?" "Target," I whispered, or thought I did. The lights were even harsher in the ER. The air smelled like blood and chlorine. I heard phrases like stroke-adjacent cerebral event and urgency. They prepped me for a CT scan. They told me I might have experienced a TIA, a transient ischemic attack, a mini stroke. A nurse leaned over me, clipboard in hand, asking for emergency contacts. I licked my sandpaper tongue and whispered, "Aubrey, my wife." They called her. I watched the nurse's face for a sign, any sign, that Aubrey was coming. She just nodded. "She's on her way." Her face didn't soften. Her eyes didn't change. A few minutes later, another nurse came in with a young man, dark braids. Tucked under his cap, he knelt down. "Your wife answered," he said. And I quote, "If it's serious, the physicians will give him a call." I stared at him. "Did she understand?" He shrugged. The room didn't spin. I did. Not physically, emotionally, spiritually. A month ago, Aubrey and I were choosing throw pillows for our guest room. She wanted new dishware, to feel more grown up, she said, and now I was on a hospital bed, moaning, hooked up to wires. Every 15 minutes, a cuff squeezed my arm like a mechanical ghost. I wanted to call her, to hear her voice, to make sure I wasn't dreaming this nightmare. But my fingers wouldn't cooperate. My body had betrayed me, and so had she. I asked again, had they called her? They said no. They were focusing on swelling, pressure, monitoring. That. Night. I faded in and out of a drugged haze. Each beep from the monitor reminded me time was running out. I listened for footsteps in the hallway, waited for someone, anyone, to find my hand. But no one came. Not with flowers, not with concern. Not even with presents. By the second night, I knew. I was alone. I asked the nurse again, my lips too dry to move properly. "Can you check again? My wife?" She glanced at my chart, then said gently, "I'm sorry." I closed my eyes. The pressure in my skull hadn't gone anywhere, but now there was something colder, something deeper. 2 days later, during a vitals check, Nurse Liza said, "Your emergency contact updated her voicemail, says she won't be reachable until next Tuesday." I asked, "Why?" She showed me the hospital's call log. She said, "She's in Hawaii." My chest didn't tighten. It sank. Aubrey had flown to paradise with Shay Whitman, her yoga instructor, the one with the man bun, the one who said monogamy was a colonial concept, the one who sold crystal-infused oils and did breathwork seminars. Apparently, he also had my wife on his arm. Instagram said so. Sunset stories, hammock legs. Disconnect to reconnect. At first, I wasn't even angry, just hollow. Anger would have been a gift. It's focused. It has edges. But this was numbness. They planned my follow-up MRI. I stopped asking about her. Started focusing on my own healing. Therapists moved my limbs. I swallowed every pill. The ICU lights never went out. The beeps never stopped. The nights were long. I was learning to exist in a body that had broken, in a life that had fractured. And yet somehow, light started to seep through the cracks. I made a promise. If I got out of there, I would never again beg for love. Not from Aubrey. Not from anyone. They say healing takes time, but in the ICU, time drags. Each minute is stretched out like taffy, broken only by a blood draw or a vitals check. 8 days. I stared at the same ceiling, waiting. She never came. On the 4th day, Nurse Hector brought my phone. "You're well enough to scroll," he said. I stared at it like a foreign object. "I haven't touched it," I whispered. When I finally did, there was one message. From Aubrey. "I hope you're feeling better. Shay and I went dolphin. Swimming. 2 exclamation points. A dolphin emoji." I read it until it burned into my brain. They still weren't sure if I'd recover full speech or coordination. Meanwhile, she was out there forming bonds with marine life. Not a question, not a phone call, just dolphins. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have the words, but because nothing I said would matter to someone who left her husband in a hospital bed to post healing quotes from Maui. On day 6, my discharge papers were stacked beside me. No flight offer, no "how will you get home?" Just me, my prescriptions, my therapy schedule, and an Uber. I paid with shaking fingers. When I got home, it felt like a mausoleum, fridge empty. Half a lemon, almost expired oat milk. Her cardigan was gone. So was her favorite mug. The bed was perfectly made, like she fluffed the pillows before staging it for sale. No trace of us, just me, standing alone in the middle of the living room, phone in one hand, staring at the silence she left behind. Don't know how long I stood there before my legs gave out. The ICU tremors reminded me my body hadn't healed. Not yet. For some reason, I opened Instagram. Maybe I needed to confirm it. Maybe I wanted to torture myself. And there it was, sunsets. Yoga poses. Matcha lattes. One video of Shay holding her. "Trust fall into love," it was captioned. I wanted to scream. Smash the phone. Erase every image. But instead, I sat there and did something worse. I remembered how she'd rest her head on my chest when she was cold, how she laughed at